Definitely. And that is awesome reading. So if anybody wants a copy of that afterwards, definitely. So we're going to talk about that. Actually, we're going to talk about that. And we talk about, you know, our thoughts being powerful, our thought and our word being powerful, and our beliefs being very powerful. Get hooked up. Okay. We think about our thoughts being very powerful, our word being powerful, our beliefs. We say our beliefs, you know, mean everything. But what's even more powerful than believing something? Knowing. And we talked about that in class on Tuesday. More powerful than just even believing, it's when you get to the point that you know. You know, okay? So, a knowing, if you think about knowing, and think about knowing as an unshakable, absolute belief that you know, and it causes our actions. So, a lot of times our belief or our knowing causes our actions. Basically, think about this. When we get out of bed, we don't even think about a floor being there. We know that, right? We know the floor is going to be there. We know the floor is able to support us, and that allows us to get out of bed on a daily basis, right? It's a knowing. It's a knowing. We don't even think about that. Now, it's interesting because we have so many things that we base our actions on that we know, that we don't even think about, that are unconscious. So what are things, and some of them are life-saving, what are things that we know that kind of, that we can think off the top of our head that causes our actions, or that we base our actions on? We know putting our hands on a hot stove would get us burned, right? We know that putting a loaded gun to our head and shooting it would be bad. We know that we need to suffer through this life and obey to get to heaven. We know that our feet would burn walking over hot coals. We know that we would die drinking cyanide. We know if we die from AIDS or cancer. We know that walking in front of a speeding car, we get hit. We know that we need some type of structured government and laws to keep peace. We know that you have to work hard to make money. We know that money doesn't grow on trees. So what about all these things we know?
Some of those are incorrect.
Some of those things we don't know. Some of those things we might have known. Some people think they know those things. Some are incorrect. Are they all incorrect? Are they none of them incorrect? Or all of them correct? The knowing that we're talking about here is physical reality, living in this human life, right? These are things that we know from that, our physical reality. And we know those a lot of times from our ancestors, right? Just like Charles Fillmore said. You know, a lot of the physical things that we know are from our ancestors, and it's passed down and down and down. It's like the Easter dinner when they made the ham, and the granddaughter cooked the meal this year, and she cut the ends off the ham and threw those away and cooked a wonderful, wonderful ham. And at dinner time, she said to her mother, "Why do we cut the ends off the ham anyway?" And she said, "I don't know, ask your grandmother." And she asked her grandmother, and grandmother said, "I don't know, ask your great-grandmother." She asked her great-grandmother, and her great-grandmother laughed and said, "I cut the ends off because it didn't fit in my pan." So, did you get it? All those years, everybody cut the ends off the ham, thinking that it was to cook the ham better, but really the only reason was it didn't fit in the great-grandmother's pan. So it was a false belief handed down. You know, like, this is what we always do. This is what we always do.
Some of these are false beliefs too.
Exactly. I wanted you to pick that out. Some of these are false beliefs, but I want to ask you, you know, okay, the belief that our feet will burn when we walk over hot coals.
No, not everyone.
That's, huh? Not everyone. So are these beliefs true for everyone? The things that we know,
Do you have to work hard for money? That's not true.
Okay. So if these are true, I mean, would all of them? There's people too that can drink cyanide and actually not die too. So are all these beliefs true, or are they not beliefs? These are things that we know. Okay, we know those though. Okay, a lot of times things we say we know. What?
But Sean says in Utah, I don't know how it goes, but it's real quick, but knowing and action is synonymous. They're the same.
Okay, good, because our action, okay, good, and our actions do come from our knowing. Our actions come from our knowing. So think about every action that we have comes from something that we know. All righty? So, when we think about our knowing comes from our thoughts and our beliefs, holding those over and over and over again until we get to a point that we know that that's true. Where do they come from? How did they start? Okay? Very, very interesting. We talk about our thoughts coming from, first of all, our ancestors, right? We down the line, we pick these thoughts up and we carry them on. And we start believing it. It's true because, you know, we learned it from our parents, from our grandparents or something like that. It's something that's known, okay? Then we have the media. And it's interesting when we think about how important the media is. Now, one of these things that I said here is we die from AIDS and cancer, okay? Now, the cancer thing, we know that there's some, you know, more and more research, people aren't needing to die from cancer. However, some people die not from the disease of cancer, but from the diagnosis of cancer, because they still believe that you might die from cancer, that you die from cancer, so as soon as they get the diagnosis, they die, not that they necessarily have to. And what's interesting is on AIDS, there is a discussion between Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra, and he talks about a doctor named Carl Simonson. He was a famous pioneer in guided imagery and cancer patients. He worked with the immune system and stuff. And he talked about the injustice of media by the public declaring a few isolated cases as fatal, or, you know, the media takes a few isolated cases, makes a judgment, and then puts it out into the world, and people accept that. He said on New Dimension Radio, Simonson said that he handled a couple of AIDS cases with complete and quick success before 1981, before the media sensationalized the news by declaring that AIDS was universally known to be a fatal disease. And then it became fatal. Isn't it interesting that prior to the media picking up that AIDS was a universally fatal disease, there were cases that had complete success and cure? Makes you think, doesn't it? He talks about placebo and nocebo. Interesting that when they did the placebo, they used the placebo on like people with ulcers. And 30%, and it's interesting because 30% of placebos will be effective. And what's really, really interesting is they check people's bodies, and if they take a placebo for ulcers, their body will actually produce a chemical that prevents the ulcers. Now, if they use the exact same placebo for somebody with heart disease, their body will produce a chemical that will help their heart disease. So it's the belief. It's not the thing, but it's the belief in it. It's the knowing. Right? You get to a point that it knows, so it happens. So there was an article on AOL just this week, because everything happened this week that came up with this, on how peer pressure is even more effective than the media. You know, about how influential peers can be to other kids in, you know, changing their beliefs or stimulating them to do things. What's totally interesting is today, when I woke up and I put on AOL, they had an article about the Milgram experiment for victims to see how many shocks a person would give somebody else if an authority figure stood behind them and told them, keep shocking them, keep giving them shocks, keep giving them shocks, keep giving them shocks. And it was incredible because it said the vast majority of participants, ordinary adult citizens, 2 of every 3 went all the way down the 30 switches of a shock generator from an insignificant initial mere 15 volts, increasing incrementally by 15 more volts until they got to 450 volts, which is dangerous and potentially lethal. They kept doing it because somebody behind them told them to do it. They also talked in that article about my famous study is the 1971 study known as the Stanford Prison Experiment, where the subjects were 24 students from all over the country who had just finished summer school in local colleges. They were chosen among 75 who had answered an ad for a psychology study of prison life to run for up to 2 weeks. By random assignment, half became prisoners who lived in our simulated jail 24/7, while the others were guards working each of 3 8-hour shifts. Within 36 hours, one of the normal, healthy college students had a severe emotional breakdown and had to be released from his prisoner role. On each of the next 5 days and nights, other prisoners broke down in similar disturbing ways, and they were forced to shut the prison down only after 6 days because it spun out of control. The guards became unhuman-like to the prisoners, and the prisoners took on that identity of the prisoners. So they had to shut down the study. So think about how influential we are as human beings. You know, we're like the waves, you know, going with anything. You know, the normal human beings are put into a prison, and they take on those ideas that they're the guard, they're the prisoners.
We were talking about earlier, create a story to manifest your goal.
They became what they knew that was going to be like, right? They had an idea what it was going to be like, and they became that. So, you know, and Charles Fillmore talks about, you know, our thinking on the humanistic level. There's one other thing that I think is pretty powerful. In the Nuremberg trials, Hermann Göring, who was on trial for the concentration camps, you know, inhuman acts at the concentration camps, he made a statement as far as getting people to war, getting people to follow along. So he says, naturally, the common people don't want war, neither in Russia, nor in England, nor, for a matter, in Germany. That is understood. Why should a poor Slav on a farm want to risk his life in a war when the best he can get out of it is to come back to his farm in one piece? But after all, it is the leaders of the country who determine the policy, and it's always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether it's a democracy, a fascist dictatorship, a parliament, or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked and denounce the peacemakers for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in any country. That's pretty scary. That's pretty scary when you think about it, how easily on a human level we conform. We go with what we know to be true instead of questioning it. You know, we go with what people say instead of questioning it, and we follow along. And we think, you know, that we have free will. This is a free will country. This is a free will, you know, we're given free will. So, how much free will do we have? And where are our thoughts coming from? Is our knowing coming from? You know, most of our knowing really is on the humanistic level, right? Now, what's the good news in all of this? What's the good news in all of this? There's a mass consciousness, okay? There is a mass consciousness that we pick up from. The 100th monkey, have you heard of the 100th monkey? 100th monkey is, for those people that haven't heard the 100th monkey, it's, there was a monkey on, let's see, experimenters threw sweet potatoes covered with dirt and grit to the monkeys. After 6 months of trying to figure out how to make the potatoes edible, one monkey washed a potato before eating it. The younger monkeys quickly followed suit. The older monkeys watched and waited before trying this new technique. Now you think about, you know, the younger ones, well, they watched it and they just followed because they watched it. But previously, groups would be perplexed for 6 months without a solution. Okay, once this one did it, the experimenters threw potatoes to new groups of monkeys on another island. The group immediately washed the potatoes and ate them. So this one idea on the one island came to the second island. Without a monkey there doing it. Automatically, they picked it up. kind of mass consciousness. Have you ever heard of somebody makes a discovery here, and on the other side of the planet, on the other side of the planet, they say, somebody said, no, wait a minute, that's my experiment. I've been working on that for years. It's the same thought. It's the same experiment.
Neil Donald Walsh, when he wrote his first book, was somebody else wrote the same book at the same time.
Wow. Talk about, Okay, because there is, within our mind, within our thinking mind, I mean, we are thinking, our thinking mind on a human level. And we don't think that our thoughts mean anything, our thoughts are private, our thoughts don't do anything. But I want you to think again, how important our thoughts are. Okay, in the one mind. If we are one mind and our thoughts are all into a pool, think about this. They did studies. It says they did a study. It was I'll have to find out where it was. Rensselaer or something like that, Institute or whatever, and it found 10%. It just takes 10% of the population to hold an unshakable belief. If they hold an unshakable belief, their belief will always be adopted by the majority. So all we need is 10% of people to have an unshakable belief. And what's an unshakable belief?
Love.
A knowing, right? A knowing. A knowing. They have to have, if they're sure about their belief, 10% of the people, it will filter out to everyone. And it's exciting to me, because think about the opportunity that we have in unity. And I think that's why they say that a shift is starting to happen. Because I think more than, it's getting to that 10% or more people that are starting to question and starting to realize, positive living. They're starting to realize the truth. They're starting to question old beliefs. They're starting to realize that, what are we doing to each other here? What are we doing? We're fighting for no reason. They're starting to question what's happening. And as we do that, as we hold on to those unshakable beliefs, as we get to that point of knowing, we have that ability to change everybody else. Course in Miracles says behind one person is 10 people. Behind 10 people is 100 people. Behind 100 people is 1,000 people. Think about being kind. Just the thing of being kind. They say when one person is kind to another, it stimulates that person to be kind to somebody else. And then that person will be kind to somebody else, will be kind to somebody else, will be kind to somebody else. But first of all, we have to look at ourselves and look at what our beliefs are and what our knowing is and what our words are saying, what our actions are doing. We think that our words are harmless, but they aren't harmless, because they do affect somebody from everybody else. Now, I have this book. It's put out by Unity. It's a season for spiritual growth. I don't know if anybody got this. It's the Lenten season readings from Unity. But tomorrow's actually is on consciousness. And this is kind of basically what we're talking about, is consciousness. And it talks about the fishermen. When Jesus went and he called the fishermen, it says in chapter 5, the Gospel of Luke, Simon and his fellow fishermen had been casting out their nets all night and had nothing to show for it. They have followed all the rules, all the things that they knew, and had followed all the rules, done exactly what fishermen have always done. Along comes a man they did not know, who basically tells them to break all the rules. Fish at a different time, in a different way. They doubt, but they are willing, and the reward is a massive catch of fish. And this is what's important here. Jesus called the fishermen to break from knowing what they know, to become active participants in the creative process rather than the passive expressions of a sense of lack. What A Course in Miracles do, what we're doing on Tuesday night, some of the exercises seem a little bit far out, but what we're doing is we're realizing the difference between our human thinking and what we know by appearances. Charles Fillmore always teaches about the sense man. In this human physical world, we look at appearances and we live by appearances. We make judgments and everything by appearances. But it's a matter of going beyond those appearances. Charles Fillmore says this in the reading this morning. He said it's about going beyond. Faith thinking is not merely an intellectual process based on reasoning. The faith thinker does not compare, analyze, or draw conclusions from known premises. He does not take appearances into consideration. He is not biased by precedents. His thinking gives form without caveat or question to ideas that come straight from the eternal font of wisdom. His perception impinges on the spiritual, and he knows. It's a matter of going beyond the physical and get into that part of knowing. And I have a little story here that expresses a really good point on how we can do that, and it's called the Bishop's Gift. Once the church had fallen upon hard times, only 5 members were left, the pastor and 4 others, all over 60 years old. In the mountains near the church, there lived a retired bishop. It occurred to the pastor to ask the bishop if he could offer any advice that might save the church. The pastor and the bishop spoke at length, but when asked for advice, the bishop simply responded by saying, "I have no advice to give you. The only thing I can tell you is that the Messiah is one of you." The pastor, returning to the church, told the church members what the bishop had said. In the months that followed, the old church members pondered the words of the bishop. "The Messiah is one of us?" they each asked themselves as they thought about this possibility. They all began to treat each other with extraordinary respect on the off chance that that one was the one that might be the Messiah. And on and off, and on the off chance that each member himself might be the Messiah, they also began to treat themselves with extraordinary care. As time went by, people visiting the church noticed the aura of respect and gentle kindness that surrounded the 5 old members of the small church. Hardly knowing why, more people began to come back to the church. They began to bring their friends, and their friends brought more friends. Within a few years, the small church had once again become a thriving church, thanks to the bishop's gift. So what did the bishop's gift do? Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. The truth is, he was right about every one of us, right? He was right about every one of us. And he made everyone see that and act like that. He made everyone see through the human errors to see the Christ within. That's how we get to know the truth. When Jesus said, know the truth with a capital T, and the truth shall set you free. It's a matter of dropping the human things, the human beliefs, the human things that we know, and getting down to the truth, which is always spiritual. And it's realizing the Christ within each and every one of us, including ourselves. That's knowing the truth about us and the truth about other people. It's seeing the good or the God in every situation. And that's the truth about it. It's not the judgments, it's not this, it's not that. It's getting away from what we know, and really, just like Jesus asked the fishermen, to drop their knowing of what they already know and to start getting into the truth. And once we do that, our actions will come out of that. Just like, Stephen said, our knowing is our actions. And really, we have all that inside of us. We have all that knowing. All that wisdom that's there. But all that other knowing and those beliefs, it blocks it. It blocks it, and it doesn't allow us to actually see the truth. And once we see the truth, it will set us free. It'll put us in a whole different dimension. And when we do the class, the Course in Miracles, that's what that's there to do. It's to separate our human thinking from what the truth is. You know, to realize that all these things that we say, these beliefs and everything, it's all on a human level. And we can let that go and become the spiritual beings that we were meant to be. So 10%, that's all it takes. To me, that's exciting, because when you think of you know, making changes, there's enough people here. Think about the amount of people right here today. You know, even though we're not full, think about the amount of people that we can affect by actually knowing the truth. You know, and seeing beyond.
There's a movie called The Butterfly Effect.
Excellent, yeah.
Butterfly. The butterfly flaps its wing on this side of the world and it's creating a whole different thing.
Yep. And it really, knowing that too, it really, really makes us responsible for what we think and what we believe and what we accept to be true. Think about the responsibility.
You know, I was thinking in my own personal life, the way my unity thinking, when I came to unity, I used to be growing up, when you went in the beginning about how people tell you what you should think, you know, when growing up, you know, you listen to people. There's like a natural people in your family, at work. You just kind of fall into place because the dominant personalities kind of take over, and then if you're not like a leader, you kind of become a follower. And I was kind of like that person. Like, I'd have ideas, but I kind of followed because I didn't want to make waves of. And then when unity came into my life, I started thinking, wait a minute, like, I can have my own divine wisdom within. Like, these people can't influence me because I can tap into a wisdom beyond anyone's wisdom that's around me and have that knowing. And when decisions come up now, instead of like, before I'd ask like all these people, what should I do? I get all these opinions and try to sort it out. But now it's like different with unity thinking. I think, no, you can go within. You know, yeah, you can ask people, you know, but really the true knowing is like sequestering myself within and asking, you know, divine wisdom, you know, is this the direction? And having that feeling of recognition, because before everyone around me had this like logical thinking, this is what you should do. It's logically, this is the way you should go, where intuitively it's different because we have the gift of free will, but we all also have the gift of discernment and being able to decide what is truly right for us. And in our highest good, if we tap into divine wisdom, it will always be the right decision in divine timing with divine wisdom. And I never knew that.
Excellent.
And I think that, like, when you say the 10%, people just don't know that. Like, they're just following, even at work, I see it at work too, like the dominant personalities. And sometimes people have good intentions of the heart, but there's other times people don't have, and they manipulate others that are a little weaker personalities for their own good or advancement. And that's when you have to look back and like, is this person, you know, trying to tell us to help me or hurt me? And again, going within to your divine wisdom will always give you the right answer.
Thank you. That was awesome. That was awesome. An awesome summation. And you brought up another point that I want to make sure that we make is, you know, knowing the truth is knowing who we are, is to be able to connect with that true self, not the humanistic ego that wants to follow everybody, wants to be liked, wants to do this or whatever. There's two thinkers. There's the ego or the human thinker, and there's the observer that we get to when we go within. And it's a matter of who you identify with. People that are easily influenced, they don't know their true self. They're going from that humanistic self, like I say, that wants to fit in, that wants to, you know, that is easily influenced. But when you know that true self, you're not as easily influenced. You know. Exactly. Thank you so much. It's a matter of knowing who we are. Knowing who we are.
That's like the caterpillar said to the butterfly, "Is this the end?" Oh no, it's just the beginning.
Good. Good, yep.
She could be a speaker once in a while.
I know, listen to her, yes. Yes, we should have a testimony day, yeah, that would be awesome. We'll have to think about that. All righty, so let's take these into meditation. Let's take these thoughts into meditation. And I want you to take a deep breath. And just feel the energy of this room. Feel the spirit, that divine spark, the love, the acceptance, the harmony. And as we go deep within, just as Joy was talking about, that place where you get to the point of knowing the truth with a capital T, the truth that does set you free. I invite you to take a person or a situation that might be bothering you in this physical human world, and make a commitment to see things differently, to see things through the eyes of the divine, to see through appearances, not using human thinking or human judging, but knowing the truth. The truth of good, of love. And as you see through different eyes, through a divine vision, see how all those judgments fade away. How they all break down and you can see a different picture. You see the divine, you see the good, you see the order and what was previously chaos. I also invite you to walk up to a mirror and look into that mirror. And I'd like you to look at the picture of yourself through the eyes of the divine. Let all the judgments break away. See that light of divinity. See that light of love. And know who you are. Know that as you live through this place of who you are, you will see others as they are. You will see each situation through the divine. As you hold on to this space of knowing, this place of true vision, I invite you to come back into this room, bringing that along. And also making a commitment to be responsible for our words, our actions, and our knowing. And so it is. And I know too many times we give up opportunities or whatever, saying we know that. We know that. The thing is, if our lives don't reflect that we're living that's our action, we don't know it. Then it's time to relearn it again in a different way.
Well, kind of like Bashar says, place the pen on the floor, stand in front of it. Okay, now pick up the pen. And he says, well, you didn't ask, how can I pick up the pen, or if I can pick up the pen. You know you can pick up the pen.
Yeah.
That's the action. The action is knowing you can pick up the pen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we need to get, yep.